Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Macro Lounge podcast. My name is Chris Bold, and your co-host today is
Rachel Mead. I am a bikini competitor, and I don't know what I'm doing.
That's right. Neither of us know what we're doing. We're just here to make it up as we go along. So I don't think it's fair to say that you're just a bikini competitor, Rachel. I believe that the 2024 World Champion is the title that we should be using.
Yes, that was actually for swimsuit as well. So yeah, world champion swimsuit. That is the title that I will brag about forever, and it's just I don't think we're going to top that.
Well, you never. It's only early. We haven't competed in 2025, and if it runs
This is
anything
true.
to last year, you'll tell me you're going to do 2 shows, and you'll end up doing about 8. So I'm fully prepared for this complete lack of following the plan, which is much like what this podcast is going to be. We will not follow anything that we've laid out, which will drive the producer of this podcast absolutely insane.
More or less, we will try to stick to topics, but please expect some sidetracking. If any of you have ever had a conversation with myself or Chris, you'll know we are very, very good at sidetracking conversations.
Yep. We're not very good at structure, much like I am extremely bad at dad jokes. So if anybody's been to an IFBB show in New Zealand before, you would probably been unfortunately afflicted by my horrible sense of humor, which is why my wife is not sitting in front of this camera and is hiding behind me, cringing right now.
On the plus
So,
side, it is entertaining for the rest of you.
yes, well, we hope so. Anyway, the idea of this first episode is to introduce you to us a little bit. And enough about me. Rachel, tell us about your fabulousness. How did you get into this sport of bodybuilding?
So back in 2019. So I used to be a personal trainer. I was working at Les Mills doing personal training and also a little bit of swim coaching on the side. Grew up as a competitive swimmer. After
This is a
quitting,
different swimsuit than the last one we're talking about.
different swimsuit,
All
yes,
right,
yes. So this
just
was
clarifying.
racing, yeah. So we actually have to do performance stuff.
Okay.
So getting into a pool, like swimming. Um,
Right.
and anyone who's ever had anything to do with competitive swimming knows that it's a lot of hours. So you're doing 2 to 3 hour sessions 2 times a day, sometimes 6 days a week. So it's like 9 training sessions a week. It's a lot of hours. So I kind of got bored not having swimming anymore. So I came across some photos of some bodybuilders. Actually, it was Rachel Dillon. She's a WBFF world champion, and also Lauren Simpson. And I was like, this looks awesome. Um, and then I was kind of like, this will be really good for my business as a personal trainer as well to do something like this because it just looks amazing. And then as I kind of did some more research, I stumbled across the IFBB, which I saw Isa Puccini, who is the queen. So I kind of crown her as the person who got me in.
No arguments from me on that one.
Yes, so that was her reigning year, I think, 2019. So yeah, and then I started looking around for some coaches, and I did my first show in 2020, which was after the first lockdown. So that was a COVID year when I did my first prep was actually cancelled because of the lockdowns, and then I had to do the
Yeah, sorry
following
about
ones.
that.
Yeah, that's all your fault, Chris.
Yeah, probably was actually. I got blamed for a lot of stuff. So hang on, let me get this straight.
My
You
headphones died. Oops.
decided that the 9 training sessions and swimming was too tedious, so you exchanged that for hours upon hours on the stair climber. I'm kind of, you know, this. Which one's the more boring? I can't tell.
There is a lot less hours on the Stairmaster than there is in the pool,
That's
especially
only
for me.
because you refuse to do cardio, even if I put it in your plan. And just to clarify, ladies and gentlemen, Rachel is one of the team members of Team Bold Physique, so yeah. I
Yes,
do get to cause her some torture and pain as we go along.
he does enjoy a bit of light torture.
Exactly. That's what I'm here for. No, that's awesome.
But
And so this year we're still planning on competing. We've got a few shows lined up, as I understand. So that's awesome. So still training, still competing. So how did you get from standing there in these lovely, beautiful, sparkly suits to where you are now?
so in I think it was 2022, I started getting into sewing a little bit, just for fun, because I've always enjoyed sewing. I was not actually allowed to take sewing in school. My parents decided that I should take math and English instead because important academic subjects, much more important than sewing apparently, and more relevant, obviously. So I started getting back into a little bit of sewing, had a little home machine, and I started just making some like swim bikinis, beach bikinis for myself. Started to get pretty decent at it, and then I kind of realized this is pretty similar to like what a posing bikini would be. So I decided to give posing bikini a try. It took a lot of tries. It's actually a lot more difficult than you would think, especially if you are pretty much self-taught. I had year 10 sewing, and oh no, year 11 sewing was the highest I got, and then yeah, pretty much from there everything else is self-taught. Up until I did a course last year, but when I was learning to make the actual bikinis, I was very self-taught. And yeah, it took a lot of tries. I had an entire box of failed attempts. So I probably spent so much money on that fabric, but eventually I got to a working model, and then I was like, hang on a second, all I have to do is put some connectors on it, and then put some rhinestones on it, and I've got a stage bikini. So
Yeah, you were misinformed, weren't you? You walked into that. I'll just put a bit of bedazzling on that. That'll be fine.
yeah, that's all good. So gave that a couple of tries. I actually went to sell a couple of my early attempts because I just wanted to make back some of the money I'd spent on it. Literally not for profit or anything. It was just like, let's try and get some money back for the material so I can buy more materials because I want to make my own suit this year. And once I did that, suddenly I had a whole bunch of people asking me for suits, which was absolutely crazy. And at this time, I was a PE teacher, so I was actually teaching in a school. And yeah, from there it just went crazy.
Yet again, making full use of that English and mathematics training.
Obviously, yes, it's so important. Actually, the math I will agree is actually very useful, especially for sewing. People don't realize how much math is involved in sewing. But English not so much. Definitely could have taken sewing there. But yeah, so from there, like I had a whole bunch of people asking for orders, and then I wasn't enjoying teaching, so I was like, well, let's see if I can make this work because there's not that many people in New Zealand who do this. And so I started up my own business called Spellbound, and I did a 6 months certificate in fashion design, just to get a little bit more knowledge around things like pattern drafting, just to kind of, there was a lot of things I'd figured out, but just figure out kind of why it worked rather than just like trial and error and, oh, okay, it works eventually, but I don't know why. That makes sense. So yeah, learned a lot from that course, and then went full time. And in September last year, I bought out Accentuate Bikinis because the beautiful Sarah actually decided she wanted to go back into teaching. So I find that absolutely hilarious that we kind of swapped jobs.
Somewhat ironic.
Yeah, so I left teaching and she went back in.
Tag, you're it. All right.
And here we are. What
Awesome.
about you, Chris? How did you get here?
Sheer stupidity, some would say. No.
Mhm.
I originally, way back when, I was really fortunate when I was very, very young, which was back in the dark ages, and we actually used pencils and pens before computers. Yes, I'm that old. I was very fortunate to be introduced to a legend in New Zealand bodybuilding, a guy by the name of Joe Olberg, who unfortunately, may he rest in peace, passed away last year. A very young age, unfortunately. We lost him too early. He was my first training partner. We joined a gym called Top Shape out in Henderson, which went on to become Club Physical. This was back in the day when the owner built the gym, and him and his wife their bedroom was the sauna. So as you can imagine, at night time it was quite cozy. So I was fortunate enough to train with Joe. Started competing. Round about would have been the late 80s, early 90s. I was fortunate enough to train with Mr. Olympia Lee Haney, and right about that time I decided I was not going to be a pro bodybuilder because that shit was hard. I thought I was like, I was, typical, young male, thought I was all that in a bag of chips, and then realized I was not all that in a bag of chips. I was dreaming. So I competed through till about 1993. I know it's very hard to imagine this svelte young gentleman here. I was a super heavyweight bodybuilder.
I wasn't even born then.
No, thank you for reminding me. I was actually doing my master's degree when you were born, but I appreciate the text there. Thank you. So my last show was 1993, and then I realized that it's just not going to be it. This was, and also, pro bodybuilding then was not like it is now. There were very few pro cards worldwide. Um, we didn't even have any in New Zealand at the time. But
Was that when you had to apply for a pro card? Not.
you had to win. You had to win the World Champs or the NPC USA, and I think there was one other. There were like 3 pro cards a year at the time, and we didn't have any in New Zealand. And to be fair, at that era, I mean, there were some really, you're talking way back, there was some classic bodybuilders we had back then that you don't hear about these days, but like Warren Thin, whose daughter was competing for a few years not so long ago. I think he won Mr. New Zealand 7 times.
Well,
Like Joe Olberg didn't even turn pro until 2011, 2012, despite having won, I think, 9 Mr. New Zealand titles. But yeah, I think there was a lot of different things. But yeah, I was never going to be good enough to be a bodybuilder. And I'm okay with that. I like lifting weights. I don't really like dieting that much. It's always been, I don't like eating that much, which is odd considering as I'm a chef by trade. That was my original qualification. But yeah, so stopped competing and then moved to the States, where I lived from about 1998 till about 2012. And I was fortunate enough there to meet the president then of the NPC in Oregon. And I was running hotels at the time. That's my training. And we got chatting and he was like, "Oh, why don't you come down and test judge?" And I was like, "All right, sounds like an idea." And so I ended up judging for the NPC in the US until I came back to New Zealand. And then was very fortunate enough to work very closely with the NZIFBB and Mo and Joanna Bronwyn forward for, when did I last judge? 2024 was my last show, last year. So really, really lucky to have those experiences. Got to travel the world judging, which is awesome. Got to judge in the Arnold Classic, got to judge at Amateur Olympias, got to judge in China, Thailand, Fiji. That's a nightmare. That's a whole different story. No offense to Fiji, beautiful country, but that was a disaster of a show. But really lucky to be involved with that. And yeah, transitioning through to coaching for the last year, which I really, really enjoy and get to work with, do something different off the back. Don't have to worry about saying, incriminating things on the microphone when judging shows. And my wife's texting me going, "They can hear you on the microphone."
and you get to work with some absolutely amazing athletes.
Exactly. And some of them do what they're told and some of them don't. Although I do have a written contract and it's on social media by you young lady, so
This is true.
I'm fairly comfortable in that position. So yeah, so it's fun. And again, that brings us to where we are now, which is doing this podcast, because hopefully some of you are listening to it, and otherwise we're just sitting here talking to ourselves, or in my case, the cat.
I mean, to be fair though, we have some great conversations. So, we just have a chat. It's basically what this podcast is going to be: is us having a good yarn, and hopefully some people listen. If not, that's fine. We just have a good chat.
Exactly. We could call it your weekly check-in.
Oh, what? Wait, what's a check-in?
Yeah, I thought I'd put that out there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, guys, don't do what I do. Definitely, I'm this is a do what I say, not what I do situation here. Yeah.
The less said about that, the better. Really, it causes me lack of sleep, tormenting. I'm a very delicate, emotional soul. I look forward. I look up there every Monday morning. I'm like, Rachel would have done it. No, she won't.
Does
It's
it
like
help?
waiting.
I don't know where my posing suit is right now.
Well, okay, you have moved, but it's kind of like when the lottery winning, on Wednesday and Saturday, you wake up on Sunday morning thinking, "I'm going to be." No, I'm not. It's pretty much how I feel. But
Anyway, I we don't need to expose me like this here.
okay, all right. Well,
How
that'll
did
be
you
our
go
intro.
from? Because I've actually never asked you this. How did you go from being a chef to bodybuilding?
Well, I always trained people, like I did my PT training way back in the dark ages. So my original degree was in a bachelor in hotel and catering administration. So hence why I worked in the States, because I worked for Marriott International for many, many years. And then I'd always been participating in the sport and then coaching athletes as well. So, and I've always said, diet food doesn't have to taste bad. It doesn't have to, which is, I realize I'm not talking to the converted, because if I tell you to eat, it's just, I'm talking to a brick wall.
Maybe you just need to cook for me. You need to cook me all the good food.
No, we know the only way to get you to eat, Rachel, is to send you to Asia. Then it's like, I can guarantee you, like, yep, she's going to come back.
Because I get force fed.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we should all go. We'll do a bikini camp in Hong Kong, and we'll just, we'll also stay there for 6 months and come back jacked.
So yeah, for reference, everybody, my partner or my fiance is from Hong Kong. His family is from Hong Kong, and in Asian culture, their love language is making you eat food.
Which,
So they will
oddly
put,
enough, in your instance, I support this wholeheartedly.
yeah, I'm one of the few, but yeah, basically they will put food on your plate, and if you don't eat it, you get basically disowned. So yeah, I get force fed a lot when I'm over there. We both put on much weight, but that's okay. Context.
Yeah, context here. It's like this. This should be an annual trip for about 16 weeks, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's the annual trip for 2 weeks usually because we can't handle more food.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures.
Anyway, coming back.
Yeah, back to the thing. But yeah, no, it's like, I guess that's the thing, is hopefully we'll get people on this podcast that will talk about their journeys, not just to competing, but hopefully we'll get some people on that have been competitors in the past, who've had different journeys onto different avenues. And yeah, so we'll just have to see how it goes.
So what made you first start competing though? How did you first train? Because I was a competitive swimmer. Did you have a sport growing up?
No, I was an incredibly unsporty, uncoordinated, drunken giraffe slashed with a sedated rhinoceros, would be how I would describe my athletic abilities. No, actually, unfortunately, I am probably one of those people that goes into the sport of bodybuilding suffering already from some form of body dysmorphia. I was a very impressionable 14-year-old, and hopefully my family's not listening to this podcast because she'll never forgive. But at about 14 years old, my mother said to me, "You're going to end up fat like your father." And I went, "Oh, okay,
So she was right.
yeah, you'll keep. How much do you like Bulgarians?" Yes.
Yeah, guys. Again, don't insult Chris like this because yeah, he likes to come back with making me do extra Bulgarians.
Yeah,
Apparently, I like suffering.
and there's lots of versions of Bulgarians. Yeah, but no, it's and it was amazing that one comment just started me down that world, where always needing to be better, always need to be bigger, always needing to be stronger, and never actually realizing it. And there's a lot of people in this sport that do suffer from body dysmorphia. I'm not one of those people that will say the sport causes body dysmorphia or the sport causes eating disorders. I do, and again, this is my personal opinion. It's not backed up by science, by facts. I don't come, down me saying, but this report says this. It's like, hey, this is just me. I think if you're susceptible to that, the sport can aggravate it.
Yes.
But it also can strengthen that. And I think that's the thing that hopefully we'll bring out in this sport, is it's not all about being the most glamorous, being the most shredded, being whatever. It is also, the sport can do good for you.
So that's actually something I found really helpful from coming from a swimming background, because swimming, you're exhausted all the time because you're getting up. You have to be at the pool at 5 a.m. And usually your day ends at about 8 or 9 p.m. after your afternoon training. You're in a sweatshirt and hoodies most of the time, just bags under your eyes, looking terrible. And to be honest, that's what kind of the end of prep is like. It's very similar.
Sounds like prep to me.
So yeah, that's why I've actually found a lot of there has been a few bodybuilders that have been coming from a swimming background, which is that because we know what it's like. You have to enjoy suffering a little bit to do bodybuilding or swimming, so it actually transitions very well, and it's not the glamour that you always see. That's only the one day on stage.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you are feeling that exhausted, and you just want to be looking homeless.
Yeah.
Just
And you
about
also want to get that spray tan off.
Yes, definitely. I need 5 coats.
5 coats, that's your base coat. 5 coats is like you're starting to look like, okay, you know. The spray tanning people see you coming and go, break out the other canister.
No, they don't see me coming. I do my own tan these days.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But anyway, coming back to that, no, I do agree that yeah, definitely it can aggravate eating disorders. But I do, yeah, it's definitely the coach has a big part in how that can be handled, and also the communication from the athlete. If the athlete isn't communicating to the coach that it's becoming a problem,
Yeah.
and then the coach does nothing, so there is definitely ways around it if you are more susceptible to it. But yeah, and but again, there's also a lot of success stories from athletes who have come from a background of having a eating disorder. Like Issa Pacini, for example,
Yep.
she had anorexia, and now look at her, she's incredible.
Yeah.
So it can actually be very beneficial in some ways too, but you just need to have the right support and the right help,
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
And I think that about this sport is something that everybody looks at this as being a very solo, very lonely sport. And I guess to a certain extent, the competitive side is. Um, but it's not something that you really should or need to undertake by yourself. Whether it's not you go to hiring a coach, hiring a posing coach, hiring all that sort of, working as a team. That's the best way to do it because then you've got the support behind you. But this really is a sport of it takes a village to raise an idiot. And
Me.
so and that's something throughout this podcast we'll go into. So we'll talk about coaching, how to find a coach, how to find the coach that's right for you, how to find the class that's right for you. I mean, Rachel, as you said, you've done bikini in the IFBB, you've done bikini in the NPC Naturals, you've done bikini in swimsuit and fitness model in ICN.
Sports, not fitness.
Sports model, sorry, get it right. I'll have Brenda on my case in 5 seconds.
Easy mix up.
Yeah, so finding the right thing, and it's also we'll talk about personal experiences. Rachel's had a lot.
I think I counted 10 shows.
Is that all?
I think so. I'll do another count.
That was just last year. That was just last year. How many?
Yeah, actually, it's probably 6 of them were from last year, at least.
Yeah.
That's a lie. So yeah, I've definitely done more than 10. I don't know about Chris, but I've been competing for 5 years now. But yeah, so both have a bit of experience.
I stopped counting at 500.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm old. I'm that old. But anyway, about things, and look, we'll share opinions, and I'm going to put it right out there now. If I offend anybody or stand on any coach's background or any coach's ideas, or your coach says do something else, well, I'm not trying to insult their delicate sensibilities. I'm just sharing my opinion, and they have theirs. And if they're your coach, you should be listening to them. Don't listen to me because they'll tell you that I'm just making shit up.
So yeah, when we do say things, that this little disclaimer, me too. We will be talking about honest opinions here. We want to share honest opinions. We don't want to be too politically correct because like bodybuilding is up for discussion. It's a subjective sport and it should be discussed so that we can kind of, I guess, learn more, because sometimes it can be very difficult to learn without those conversations because of the subjective nature of the sport. So if we say anything about anyone, again, it doesn't mean not right or wrong. It doesn't mean we're trying to be insulting or anything. Usually we're not. Usually it's just an opinion. Sometimes it might sound like it's insulting or like it might sound negative, but it's not. Sometimes, me and Chris can just come off that way. But I promise we're not trying to insult anyone. We are just trying to share honest opinions, and also remember that because we might do a couple of show wrap ups, or like discuss some of the winners from shows. It does not mean that, like, again, we're not trying to be negative on you as a person. It's very non-personal when you're up on stage. Once you're up on stage, it is not personal. It's You're basically a work of art that we are discussing.
Exactly. You put and the reality of it is this the competitive side of this sport is it's subjective. And at the end of the day, the reality is the only person's opinions that matter are the 5 to 7 judges sitting at the front of the row. It's their opinions that count, and the only person who's going to come away is the winner. I won't always agree with what the judges say, even though in a lot of cases I will know the judges personally. But I respect their opinions. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to like it. But I tell you what, at the end of the day, they are there to do a job, and all of them, regardless of the federation, guys, they're doing it for free. So we got to give them some love. And my opinion and Rachel's opinion is just our opinion. And you don't have to like it, but we hope you do. Anyway, that is probably enough of us waffling on for episode 1. What are we going to be talking about next time, Rachel? Well, according to the producer, who will remain nameless at this stage, because if we tell you who it is, she'll probably hurt me or divorce me.
I
In
wonder who
episode
that
2,
could be.
yeah, it's well, shh, secret. Episode 2, look, these are planned out, as Rachel said. We probably won't stick to these plans, but
We
we're
may
at least
change
going
some waters here and there.
yeah, we're at least going to pretend to. All right, in the next episode, we're going to be talking about why you should compete and some of the realities of bodybuilding. We're going to explore the reasons behind competing and what it really takes. So, on behalf of myself, we hope for you to hear our sweet dulcet tones in the next episode. And Rachel and I will be back then. So, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. And Rachel,
Enjoy the rest of your day.